Welcome to the belated, well, it's 5 minutes late, Defiant Open Metaverse show. Very excited today to have, of course, Vector Meldrew, but alongside him, Bruno from RMRK. Welcome, Bruno. NFT Legos. Let's get to it. Bruno, I think people who are not on the Kusama ecosystem will be shocked and surprised to see that there's a project that has so much flexibility and excitement around it as yours, and to see what's possible with NFTs. I wonder if you could break down for us what RMRK is, what Kanaria is, and basically what these pesky NFT Legos actually are.
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. Big fan, long-time viewer. Really nice to be here. So what RMRK is a set of NFT 2.0 Legos that make NFTs 2.0 possible. So essentially, it's a system of kind of atomic Legos that you can put together into any combination of arbitrary complexity. But as you put them together, any user interface, any wallet, any marketplace supporting those 5 elementary Legos will automatically support any permutation of these Legos. So you can essentially build a very complex NFT system and have it automatically be supported on any marketplace that does NFTs. This is in stark contrast to today, where if you want to add any custom functionality to an NFT project, you have to basically hire a Solidity team, somebody to maintain a UI for this. Your functionality will only be available on that UI, and if the team goes away, so does the custom UI. Additionally, the incumbent marketplaces in the ecosystems have zero incentive, well, near zero incentive to actually add that custom functionality to their offering, because if they add one project's custom stuff, where's the end, right? Where do they stop? When do they say no? And so this is why kind of the current NFT ecosystem is defaulting to the lowest common denominator of ERC 721, links to media, whereas RMRK was envisioned as this set of just five core Legos that let you do much more with NFTs and let you think of them as not links to media, but arbitrary rows of data that you can cryptographically prove that you own. And what you put in that data, what you put in those rows is entirely up to you. We have some examples both in production and in ideation, but in a nutshell, it allows NFTs to be much more. Yeah,
I think the easiest way to express it is NFTs can be app-like. Is that fair? They can contain logic, and that logic can be remixed to your heart's content to generate much richer engagement and experiences through ownership, I guess.
Sure, that is one way. I guess if you look at it from an examples perspective, like Lego number one is NFTs can own other NFTs, which is something we've borderline seen in Ethereum, but always top down, never bottom up. It was always like, I have this project, and now I'm going to make these elements of this project removable or interchangeable. This boxes it in to that project again. What we did was come up with a set of standards which let you add this compatibility, this cross-collection compatibility to projects that already exist. So you can imagine, like right now in a typical project, you have, I don't know, 10,000 butterflies, and then 2 butterflies have golden wings. Or maybe they have, I don't know, a golden piercing on wings, 2 of them. And so the rarity of this is 2 in 10,000. In our ecosystem, it's a little bit upside down, where you can make that piercing removable and equipable onto the other butterflies, which in and of itself is interesting, but some people have done this in some ways. But then somebody else actually can make a collection in the future that is compatible with this piercing. And so if 50,000 pigs come out 5 years down the line that are compatible with this golden piercing, the rarity of this golden piercing is no longer 2 in 10,000. It is 2 in 60,000, because it is now equipable onto 60,000 things. So this is one concept. Like Lego One, NFTs can own and equip other NFTs to change their visual appearance, and their appearance updates on every application that implements these standards. Lego 2 that is most critical here is multi-resource NFTs, where one NFT can be multiple things at once. So it depends on context in which you load that NFT. So if I have an ebook NFT that is at the same time a PDF file and an audio file, if I load it into Audible, it will just play. If I load it into Kindle, I will just be able to read it. If I load it into OpenSea, I'll just see the cover. It has 3 different resources, so 3 different outputs. One is a PDF, one is an audio file, one is an image, but it's all in the same NFT. And this is not different NFTs in one NFT. It is different outputs of the same NFT. And so you put these 2 Legos together, and you get the makings of an open metaverse. Because when you think about a metaverse experience, if you have an avatar in a pixelated or cartoonish metaverse, and you have an avatar in a hyper-realistic one, like Zuckerberg mentioned in our Lex Friedman podcast recently, which jacket do you buy? The cartoonish one or the realistic one? With standards that let you be more than one thing at once, you get both at the same time. You get one jacket that has a different visual output based on where it is loaded. And if it is loaded in the cartoonish metaverse, it just loads the cartoonish jacket on your avatar versus the hyper-realistic one in the hyper-realistic one. So there's a lot of these different concepts, like 3 more Legos that you can put together. But basically, in a nutshell, RMRK is right now the only technology that makes a really decentralized metaverse possible. Other metaverses right now that you have are just multiplayer games that replaced username and password logins with reading a balance of an NFT, which is fun. And granted, most people don't really care about decentralization in this regard, but we like to dog food to the max and just go all the way. So we'll see how that works out.
It's the big kind of question that everyone who comes from a gaming universe always says, yeah, but NFTs are bullshit. They can't possibly work because they cannot be interoperable. It's too big of a hurdle. And you would have to say, yes, retrofitting an open metaverse experience onto pre-existing games, probably, but there will be these translational SDKs that will enable existing Fortnite skins or anything else to be resourced as RMRK NFTs. And once they have that translation done, boom, you're off to the races. And I think what's so fascinating about this is it's the long tail of it. It's the fact that this is an open source, decentralized thing, which can live with you and can be adaptable and build upon in perpetuity for as long as the Ethereum network or the Kusama network or any of these multi-chain networks exist, which we believe should be for the rest of time. This should work. I don't think anyone's really ever thought about digital formats in this way before. We always think, well, in 2 years' time, we'll get the next version of a JPEG, we'll get the next compression algorithm, and then all of that just goes away. But this is really a completely different way of thinking about digital heritage and legacy.
Yeah, and it's a kind of a big deal because it evolves with you. Like if you have like an avatar that has an NFT brain, and in that NFT brain you install a new craft recipe, which is an NFT of itself, but a non-transferable one. And then you install a personality NFT, which is again a non-transferable NFT. But then that same avatar has items, resources, whatever it gained in that world. None of that is logged on a server that can go down. All of it is in that avatar. And every time you stop playing, you've logged out with a slightly more valuable NFT. Additionally, any collection that exists right now will exist far beyond an initial Gary Vee tweet. Because once the popularity dies down, that is initial in a project launch, you can make it compatible with future collections. You can add different resources, different styles to it. And so your hat that went on to 15,000 raccoons in 2018 will become popular again, will become alive again if you make it compatible with a future product along the line. But it's simplest to explain it in these terms, like you can evolve your items, make them multi-metaverse compatible and so on. That's very cool. But again, it's also limiting. Like it can also be mixed media. You can equip a music track into an NFT song that is multi-layered and takes stems and then distributes royalties to everybody who contributed equipable stems into that track. But you can also equip a sub-track of that into a piece of Metaverse land to have a Metaverse land soundtrack and increase the rarity of that stem that way. So there's a whole world of potential here that lays undiscovered.
So I think what's really interesting here is that we tend to think of NFTs as these items, but I think in the future they're really not going to be items anymore. They're going to be potential. And if we think about them as potential, then it's simply, how do you want to remix this thing where you can track the ownership back to you, but then it's evolvable, it has a timeline to it, and as you go on your own particular journey through whatever your metaverse experience is, these things can really genuinely grow up with you, and they become like kids in a way. They become like your children, and you look after them, and you bring them up with you. And that's the thing that, again, like when gamers hate on NFTs, really, I think they actually want this. They want the time invested to be represented in some way that is portable. And if you say that to them, then I think they would get it. If you took away all the other stuff of the extractive kind of mechanics around NFTs and game publishers trying to just get more money out of them, that bit alone will work if they can see it in action and they get it. And I feel like RMRK is the project that has come closest to giving it a hype-free like implementation. But I am curious, like, how do you, when you say it's multi-resource, those resources have to be stored somewhere, but where are they stored?
On any network you want. So you can use the multi-resource angle for different representations of a single NFT, like that deity that has 4 faces as it turns around. You just have a different output of an NFT depending on where you load it from, what you use it in, what context you use it in. But also, by default, we save it on IPFS. But this can go beyond just representing an NFT in different ways. So while this is useful to dismantle that gamer argument of Counter-Strike skins are not compatible with Minecraft skins, with multi-resource NFTs they are, because you have one file for Counter-Strike and one file for Minecraft in the same NFT. So that's a skin that's compatible with multiple games. You can also use it as redundancy for resources for actual hosted content. So as more and more NFTs actually become centralized, like like a huge percentage of new NFTs is just minted on centralized servers, and nobody really seems to care much. What you can do with multi-resource NFTs here, you can have one resource that points to that image on IPFS, one resource that points to that same image on Arweave, one that points to that same image on SiaCoin, one that points to that same image on a centralized server. And with every new resource of the same thing you add to this NFT, you actually exponentially increase its long-term resilience.
It's robustness. Yeah, it's resilient to any of the things that can take these things down. I mean, I went to the Arctic recently. We buried NFTs in the Arctic as this kind of air gapped, like seriously hardcore kind of backup copy. But I think what you're talking about is a lot more functional, because it takes about 24 hours to retrieve the data when you need to. But I mean, I have another question, which is, why did you build on Kusama?
I was working at the Web3 Foundation at the time. It was a very interesting chain to be in. It's kind of like the people's chain, not the VC's chain. It's named after an artist, and it was kind of the cypherpunky chain that reminded me very much of the Usenet groups of the old times. Very hacker friendly, welcoming experimentation and really weird applications. Plus, I was just there, so I figured, like, how can a blockchain named after an artist at the beginning of a new NFT boom not have NFTs? And so I wanted to hack them onto this. The additional challenge was putting NFTs onto a chain without smart contracts. That was also fun in its own way. But basically, it was just circumstance. I do have to admit that a big part of the appeal was the fact that there was no incumbents and bureaucracy to go through, because submitting, like, I don't know if you know, but the optional standard for royalty payments in Ethereum, and it has to be optional because royalties are unenforceable on chain. That standard, so 2 extra optional fields, it took 3 years of discussion to get implemented. So when I translated that to how long would it take to discuss and implement these Legos that we've constructed, I just figured it's better to be in an environment where we can just iterate really quickly and get to a product really fast, and then maybe polish it and submit it as EIPs and so on. And so this was a mix of these, kind of perfect opportunities to get started in.
Yeah, I've spoken to a lot of people who have been at Kusama and they love it. They absolutely love it. Polkadot can be a little bit stodgy and also a little bit kind of playing it safe, like playing it really, really safe, protecting that. Whereas Kusama's like this, fuck it, let's just go do something cool. You had to prove that this could work. Kanaria was a proof of concept. Tell us a little bit about the history of that and where Kanaria is at now.
Yeah, we wanted to become kind of self-sufficient, and we wanted to fundraise, but we didn't want to launch, in the traditional way. So we sold NFTs as a proof of concept for the first version of RMRK. Those were eggs that would hatch into birds, but we have this one more Lego as part of RMRK where you can send on-chain reactions, emojis to NFTs that are also rendered in every UI. And with what you send to your egg would influence what kind of bird would hatch from this egg eventually. So if you send like 50,000 fireman hats, then it would hatch with a fireman hat probably. Only in this case, it would actually hatch with an equipable and unequipable fireman hat. So we also immediately co-launched a global item economy of mutually compatible items that span not just Kanaria, but also other collections that can equip them. And this was kind of like a test. Like, can we pull this off? Can this really work in a way that we envisioned? And it turns out it can, and there's a lot of demand for it, and people have launched really wonderful things on this. People use this as an inspiration for anything from composable PFP avatars that look like you've been tripping on shrooms, like Mushroomtopia that you see right there on the screen, to stuff like there's this, like, for example, a really cool experiment. Turnout in on-chain voting has historically been low everywhere across the board, and Kusama and Polkadot by extension have this concept of forkless upgrades where you can just propose a new runtime to the chain itself by uploading the actual runtime, and if it passes a coin vote, which has some anti-whale mechanics and so on, it will be auto-enacted. It's basically like changing the engine of a car mid-drive. And this works well. We've had over 190 referendums executed so far on Kusama, and these are all incremental upgrades to the chain. No need to wait for a hard fork or something. But turnout is low. And so what one guy did was he made an NFT on RMRK that is a shelf and gave it to everybody who participated in this referendum. And then for every time you vote on a referendum, you get a different NFT based on how you vote. And now and these NFTs are equipable on this shelf. So you have your trophy shelf. And so over time, people are building their visual indicator of participation of on-chain activity, which is cool and it's on its own. And people are ending up with really creative different shelves. But what's even cooler is that because we are in this multi-chain environment where all the chains are connected, a DeFi protocol can now read, a DeFi protocol that is on another chain, a connected chain, can now read that NFT and based on your past performance, judge this as your reputation and maybe give you an under-collateralized loan or something like that. So you have this potential of using these composable, non-transferable reputational NFTs, basically, that are visually attractive, as also some utility in DeFi and prediction markets and other stuff. So Kanaria was basically a proof of concept that this works, that people can launch this, that nested royalties work, that you can do items that can grow in utility over time, and keep what we call like eternal liquidity, basically. And yeah, it kind of turned out really, really well, and they are now the cornerstone of our entire metaverse experience, and they are our Bored Apes, basically.
Yeah, it's fascinating when you realize how kind of interactive our experiences with smartphones are, and just how really basic NFTs are as an experience. I had to kind of retool my brain when I was thinking about what the other side and the Bored Ape experience is going to be. And the interoperability thing is such a big part of it. But what you've done is you built it from the ground up, whereas what they've got to do is they've got to build an SDK that allows other projects to come in and translate into something that works. I've got a question here from JMO. How resources intensive is it to interact with a RMRK NFT?
Yeah, so this is why we didn't also immediately deploy on Ethereum. It's not reasonable to expect somebody to pay $100 to send a poop emoji to an NFT, which makes sense. So it is definitely prohibitive, and on Ethereum there is a good reason why NFTs have not progressed from the static nature that they have, apart from just lack of support in the ecosystem, and that's cost. On Kusama, it is fairly cheap. You can mint like 1,000 NFTs for $5, but this is because we're still using kind of this hack approach on Kusama that is not really halal in terms of blockchains. But
Classic Bruno.
but when we deploy, we're now deploying on Moonriver, which is an EVM chain, and over there it's also fairly cheap. But that's purely like with any other EVM chain that is not Ethereum. That is purely because there's not as much use. So we are working with some layer 2 solutions. We are working with some rollups, and we are also working on a Rust version of the contracts of the RMRK standards that will be implemented as part of the runtime of various chains that have already opted in for this. So these will be hyper optimized implementations. But for just generally basic use that doesn't require that much interaction, the Solidity smart contracts will be fine.
So okay, so this where you say it's multi-chain, there's two ways to look at this. There's like Polkadot is not just a chain; it's a cosmos of chains, if you like, all connected to each other and sharing the security of the main beacon. Is that what you mean by multi-chain, or do you mean that it reaches across to the likes of, Terra or Solana or elsewhere? Is that really what you mean by multi-chain, or is it within the kind of broader Polkadot / Kusama ecosystem?
It is mainly within the .sama ecosystem, yes, because they are automatically all connected without a separate bridging infrastructure. And so sending messages to and from trustlessly that have guaranteed execution as intended is easy there. We can, of course, bridge these out in and out of .sama, and we will most likely do this through EVM chains connected into .sama. So something like you have an NFT on Moonriver and you can send it easily to Ethereum or Polygon or others because they're also EVM, and we will do this through our partner MyNFT. So they are an NFT bridging company. But inside of .sama, the multi-chain is actually just these chains connecting to the relay chain of Polkadot or Kusama and talking to each other through the cross-chain messaging protocol.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was expecting. I mean, taking a look at Near Protocol, I saw there was the Aurora chain that's EVM compatible. It's like a layer 2. All of these things feel very clunky right now, but I would imagine at some point that it all just becomes very elegant and very simple, and also just disappears under the hood as well. How far
Let's
off
hope
are we
so.
from that?
Let's hope so. I'm until we've solved the bridge incentivization problem, not super optimistic. Like you can, it is to me at least, it's really easy to move funds from Ethereum to Polygon, for example, and yet you can clearly see that when a collection launches on Ethereum, despite the gas cost, people will just gobble it up there, whereas on Polygon it can just stay and stay and stay. The barrier will always be there, in part because you need extra clicks and a delay, and in part because people just don't have spare ETH on Polygon at any time, but they can always access it on Ethereum. So I don't know how we'll solve this in a very smooth way, and I think it really is going to be quite a war between these L2s and so on, because they can't keep existing with such a small market share bit off of Ethereum. There will have to be some deaths for the good ones to survive.
There will have to be some tests. I honestly, I think that I have a more positive view on this, which is I think somebody right now is building the best wallet we've ever seen. And in that wallet, there will be abstraction of all of this stuff to the point where you just go, oh, well, obviously it's like that. It's like the iPhone moment for wallets is coming. I think that. But I also think that the layer 0 style messaging will take over, where it's really fast. And it also doesn't require you to like literally pick up a suitcase full of gold bars and take them literally with you, 10 hours of travel to the next continent, which is kind of what bridging is. It's like you literally take your wealth with you, which is so absurd in this digital era. We have to get past that, but I think we will get there. But the UX layer sits on top of it. But I think that's what you're doing so beautifully, is like you're creating a UX that feels very modern, and the potential for to do some really spectacular things, which don't need to be that complicated either. They can be very simple, but very functional. And I think that's possibly the biggest stick that we get hit with in NFTs, is like, who the fuck cares about a picture of a monkey? So what does it do? Well, now you can go, it does a fucking shit ton that nothing else could ever have done previously. And now let's go play. That's where I think RMRK is really, sending a big message that probably nobody even knows about, because you're on Kusama. And that was your choice.
That is a lesson. That it was a good choice and a bad choice at the same time. We probably would have been far more popular anywhere else. There is a bit of a walled garden there in terms of just community reach and awareness. Every project in .sama is experiencing this, and we are kind of a little bit at a loss at how to fight this. Which is kind of our way to fight it is we'll just finish our EVM contracts and spam the universe, go everywhere and deploy wherever we can, show people that the future is more than ERC 721.
The future definitely is. Vector, you've been quietly in the wings. As an artist, what do you see here? Are there things that kind of make you think like my NFT could be so much more than this?
Yeah, I mean, we had a good conversation with Charlie Cohen the other week, and she was talking about the issues with fashion and how, as you move towards these different worlds, there's different file types. So I guess essentially that's what she said the solution, she described it as a bundle, but I guess this is also the kind of thing you're talking about as well, when you need the pixelated version for maybe one metaverse and then the high res OBJ for another one. But then you're saying it goes further than that. Right, and it's backed up even more by decentralizing the file storage or sharing it across different methods. So yeah, that feels like it's a solution to that bundle problem, right?
It is. So it both to the bundle problem and the storage problem of moving it across universes. So right now, how do you get a new 3D asset into something like, I don't know, Decentraland? The 3D model you have as your NFT is not rigged to be interacted with in the world. It has to be integrated with the client. And so you have this barrier of having to do multiple things and then bind that NFT's balance to the camera viewpoint of your avatar in that client itself, in order to be able to use it. And so there's a lot of these hoops to jump through. Whereas with if you launch a metaverse on RMRK, not only do you have an NFT that has all of these different variations of itself in itself, and stored on a lot of backups if you need it to be, it also contains the very file that the game itself or the environment itself or the 3D gallery itself will load. So it will load directly from the NFT, not from itself, not from its own storage. And that's pretty cool. And so I think that this is what lends it true power. But also the power is in, because this nesting infrastructure allows you to put NFTs into NFTs, you actually get true digital scarcity that wasn't possible before. Right now we have this talk of digital scarcity, but in effect, you can log into 20 different instances of the same metaverse with the same wallet and the same NFT, and you can even sell that NFT while you're playing. Nothing's going to happen to you because you only use it to log in. But if you have an avatar and you want to put it into a piece of metaverse land, you will literally put it into a piece of metaverse land. You will equip it into the land. The land will own that avatar. And if that avatar is in the land, it by definition cannot be anywhere else. And so now you have true digital scarcity, a metaverse which is more reminiscent of the Ready Player One universe, where you actually are where you say you are and not in multiple places at once. And now you have like an environment where you really do see the demand of different NFTs, because they cannot be just copied all over the place and reused easily. So this is one more angle of all of this. It all fits together in kind of this big story.
Yeah, that's a big thing. I hadn't really thought about that before, because I'm aware of my daily habit, which is I will be on OpenSea and I'll be on Uniswap and I'll be on Matcha and I'll be on different chains simultaneously. So I'll be on Avalanche and I'll be on Polkadot, but I'm all like not Polkadot necessarily, but I'm doing it all through MetaMask, and I switch. But I also switch between wallets as well. So I'll switch between XDeFi and I'll switch between Rabby and I'll switch between MetaMask, and I have this constant thing. But it's always the same kind of set of credentials. And what you're talking about is instances, and that's a very powerful concept indeed. Like digital instances being provably unique.
Yep, exactly.
That's really interesting. Vector, you brought up the point about fashion, and fashion is a beautifully modular art form, because you have a fabric and you have the stitching, so you have this craft that goes on top of it, and then you have the aesthetic eye to put a collection together, and you have studios. All of these things can be kind of deconstructed and turned into items that can then be remixed in other ways. Music obviously has that because it's built into stems, and the idea of digital music is very much about, compiling layers of items. I think we're just really scratching the surface of a kind of a revolution in remix culture through NFTs that now can track. It's like bootlegs have now got a royalty attached to them. I think that's probably the best way to think about it, like bootlegs as a business. Can you imagine? But like that's where we're at, right? Everyone sees this culture as a threat. All I see here is this is going to be freaking awesome. Like so many of these things can be just like a tiny little seam of gold that you can mine for like years and years and years. But once you've mined it, it doesn't stop. That work continues to generate value for you over time and over years and years and years. I don't think anyone's really figured that out yet. Like this is 50, 60, 70, like 100 years worth of value right now. So make sure your kids have your seed phrases written, like tattoo them on their eyeballs. Don't do that. That's abuse. I'm not advocating for abuse, but you know where I'm going with this. I'm kind of just like figuring this out in real time. But like, I love seeing like my expectations, my assumptions about what NFTs are just thrown in the bin. But what I'm sad about is that we have to go and can find this innovation on chains which are not where most of the eyeballs are. So it's great that you're here to tell us about it.
Yeah, and I mean, there's regarding music, there's actually a really interesting project that does just that. It tokenizes remixes based on these custom tracks, and they're actually going to have like the main music stage at the Blockdown Festival in May, where like they will tokenize the remix of a song as an NFT, and then you own that remix of a song. So if you, and this is kind of like the first prototype, but then later you will have these stems as separate NFTs that people can mint. And so if I make a drums track and put it into that song and that song sells a copy, I will get my share of royalties based on my contribution. But then you can take it further and like apply a Lego number 5 of RMRK to a song and democratize it by fractionalizing it. And instead of using those tokens but for gambling, you actually give them to the community so they can interact with that song and decide which stem goes into which slot. And so now you have 2 indicators of contribution. You have the stems that were contributed. You also have everybody who participated in the creation of this collaborative composition. And you can distribute royalties based on that. And so you have entire, like orchestral minds formed, hive minds formed online that will create impressive remixes of movies or songs or GIFs or whatever else you can think of. And that, I think, is incredibly powerful.
It is. And what I love about it is demanding that people who have got creative energy to burn figure out ways to work with each other in ways they have never done so before. And that, for me, is where it gets really interesting, when we think about the metaverse, we always think about these grand, massive 3-dimensional environments, but actually it's a lot simpler than that. It's just the free passage of creative ideas between people wherever they are and whoever they are, and then stuff happens. And that version of the metaverse is much easier to wrap your head around than all these other things where you have to buy a plot of land and you have to build something on it. That's so sort of awkward in a way. It feels very kind of predetermined. I think we should be a lot freer in the way that we allow things to happen, and that's a lot to do with chaos theory as well. Just being happy to be in a constant feeling of I'm right and I'm wrong simultaneously, which is very Web3 in a way.
That's very much NFTs, always right and wrong at the same time.
Yeah, but I mean, can we be certain of anything right now? And do we need to be even? That's, I guess, the question.
No, completely not. No, I actually resonated with you had a tweet storm earlier, Robin, didn't you?
I've been told that I need to do more on my social profile, so I just started vomiting stuff onto Twitter to see what would come back. What did you like about it particularly?
I like this tone you developed where you just kind of say it as it is, say it how you think it. It's kind of like, you know, you're kind of saying none of us are experts. Let's stop going on like we're all experts. Most of us don't know what we're talking about, so just everyone calm down a bit. Was what I took away from it.
Do you know what, though? That's a very easy position to take. It is, genuinely, because if you set yourself up as an expert, then that's a very precarious position, and then you have to kind of double down and continue to generate content where you say, I am an expert. If you take the opposite position, contrary, which is we're all idiots, which is undeniably true, then A, you can never be wrong, and B, you really don't have to deliver that much content because your position is clear, and that's it. So it's actually a very easy position to take, but I fundamentally believe it. I love being wrong. I love being wrong more than anything else in this space. And it's in that moment that you learn and you discover. And once you say, this is what it is, then you've stopped learning. And that's fatal, I think.
Oh, completely. And this is, as we talked about the other week, the neuroplasticity involved. This is a space that really tests that. As soon as you think you have a mental model, you're often immediately told by whatever the outside factors are that you don't have a mental model. So you really need to just be constantly flexible to whatever it is. You know, so many of these things that we've experienced have been phenomenons.
Well, that's a really good point. Kanaria, it was a phenomenon. I think it, and how did you take that, Bruno? Did you receive that success and go, yeah, I am a genius, or how did it make you feel?
Well, we were in crunch mode for months to deliver that, and we were right at the end before the delivery. We were all extremely just. Not just burned out, but also worried that, oh my God, what if people don't like it and we did all of this for nothing? And so I don't think a single person said something negative about everything that we then shipped. And this was a huge, cry from happiness moment. But we never felt like geniuses, and it was always something more that needed to be done, something that we felt we missed, something that we had to do better. I like the learning experience of being wrong. I do like to upgrade what I know, and like the saying goes, everybody you ever meet knows something you don't. So talk to as many people as you can, experiment with as much as you can, but also constantly being wrong or thinking you're wrong or thinking you have to do better. God damn, that's exhausting. We have not had a day of vacation in a year and a half, and it's all because we find ourselves unable to relax. We have to do this better. We have to do this better. So it's also not very healthy, I think.
So I guess a large part of what you've had to do is build the infrastructure around the kind of evolutionary NFTs that you built. Singular is your marketplace. You've had to build a marketplace from scratch as well, just to validate the ability to sell and trade NFTs on.
Yeah.
And I feel like marketplaces are about to undergo a fairly heavy evolution, re-examination. as the hegemony of OpenSea is challenged by all sorts of different things. But what's been your experience of building that marketplace?
Horror.
The truth, finally.
It is not that much like web development is not rocket science. Stuff goes into a box, stuff goes out of a box. That's it. The box changes. It's a database, it's a blockchain, but that's it. The problem is when you lack smart contract security, you are doing a lot of funky stuff to make things work. So we, for example, did not have smart contracts to implement NFTs on or trading on. And so we had to come up with some really, really, really funky stuff to make all of this work, which remains a challenge to this day. And we cannot wait to retire this system because it's burning people out. It works.
Smart contracts are coming to Kusama, right?
No, I mean, Kusama itself, never. No.
I didn't realize. Are you?
Yeah. No, Kusama is a no smart contract a relay chain that is designed to be lightweight forever. Like,
of course,
its only purpose is to pass messages back and forth between chains.
And so you need to build a parachain that has smart contract capability on top of it.
If you want smart contracts of your own, yes. What we do is we deploy smart contracts on a connected parachain like Moonriver, or we rely on other chains that already exist to add our Rust plugins that will add remark logic to the chain natively into their runtime. And we have about, maybe 8 or 10 chains committed to doing this. So we will be just present there. So we don't have to run our own chain. We can deploy on anything we want, really. But Kusama itself has no smart contract. And this has been the pain point in just developing the marketplace. The marketplace would have been much better by now if we didn't have to deal with that. But it's already very, very good. It has very clear, identity registration. It is, I think, the only marketplace that lets you pick from NFTs you own as your profile banner and your profile picture without allowing you to add something you don't own. It also lets you add composable PFPs as your avatars so that you can actually build your PFP with those equipable NFTs that you can collect pieces of on the marketplace and then put it together and then put it on your avatar. It is the only marketplace with nested royalties where children get appropriate royalties. So if I'm, a designer and I design just a patch for a jacket for an avatar and that avatar gets sold, I, as the patch designer, still get my royalties. Has a lot of benefits that other marketplaces don't have, but because there are no smart contracts, it also has a lot of disadvantages. Like there are no offers.
I was going to ask you about that because offers is such a crucial piece of the liquidity matrix, I guess, in NFTs. Like the comfort that people feel when there's an offer, and they know they could take it, but they don't have to, and then that's a big deal. So I can imagine that gets in the way.
Yep. Offers and just auctions and stuff that requires anything that deals with automatic refunds of money, automatic transfer, programmability of money is missing. That's missing.
Interesting. Well, listen, Bruno, love to keep you around. I need to do the commercial thing now and play a sponsor message, but we'll jump straight back into some more fun stuff straight after these messages.
We left Earth and settled the cosmos. Our greatest accomplishment became our downfall. Our struggle for freedom would last 9 decades. Warriors emerged and made the ultimate sacrifice. In the final battle at Mu 36, we achieved victory, but it would be centuries before we would know the cost. Learn our story. This is only the beginning.
Is your crypto sitting idle without earning you any passive income? On Nexo, you can maximize the value of your crypto in no time and earn rates of up to 17%. Their web platform and mobile app are super easy to use. You can buy crypto with cards instantly and start earning interest paid out daily. The Nexo exchange has over 300 market pairs. Every time you swap or buy crypto, you get up to 0.5% cash back that's automatically added to your wallet. If you want to finance buying a car or a trip to a faraway place, you can borrow cash by using your crypto or NFT as collateral. You don't lose your crypto, and you can get borrowing rates as low as 0% APR. Nexo has over 4 million users worldwide, and their platform is equipped with a top-quality security infrastructure designed to ensure maximum protection of assets at all times. Go to nexo.io and get started today. Yo, so we're back with Bruno from RMRK and Vector Meldrew, and I want to jump straight back into something really interesting here, which kind of gets into this idea of, choose your own adventure, pick your own journey, and we're talking about people pleaser and the Shibuya marketplace idea. This is a really interesting project. Do you know this one, Bruno?
I am a producer.
Oh,
I can't hear anybody, which is wonderful. So I can't hear you. I can't hear anything.
Test. Can you hear me?
can you hear me?
I'm going to ask my producer, Daniel, can you hear our guest?
I can hear Bruno. Bruno, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
This is like the best live stream moment ever. Put your hands in the air if you can hear me.
I'm got any hands.
Beautiful. I can't hear anybody else. It's wonderful.
We need some funny music.
Everyone can hear me. Well, this is good. This is going to work. Well, I'll try and sort this out. And but anyway, this is Shibuya. This is coming from People Pleaser and the legend that is Maciej Kuchara, who is the designer, concept artist, just all-round legend behind like some of the most iconic film, TV, anime, pop culture icons we've seen in recent years. I had him on the show like at the end of last year. Incredible artist. So he's teamed up with People Pleaser. People Pleaser is kind of one of those breakout NFT artists that's been on the cover of Time magazine. It's really kind of like at the forefront of like really desirable NFT art, and the Pleaser DAO formed to acquire her pieces. So what they did was they teamed up and they said, we're going to allow people to vote on what happens in a piece of long form content, but in tiny, 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 tiny chunks. So what we have here, hopefully this will work if I play it. This is their film and the first chapter of it. Can you hear that? Say nobody hearing anything. Okay.
No.
I don't know what's going on here, but there should be some sound. There we go.
Yes.
So the idea is that you've got this manga battle princess, and she's faced with a choice. You've got these two doors, left and right. The animation stops, and then you have a choice. So now it breaks into this kind of looping animation. You've got this weird hand over here, or you've got a wolf. Now, the voting's already happened for this, but basically they allow people to kind of vote on the decision, vote on the storyline through NFTs. The quality of the art is indisputable. This is Maciej. This is like very highest level of anime art. We can now click on the wolf because this was the direction that the community decided, and see the rest of this story unfold. The basic premise is that we're in the future. AI is taking over everything, but someone is going to fight back, and it's this young lady, and we're following her story. And then we get a bunch of credits because that's as far as they've gone. Now, animation like this, Vector, tell me, how long does it take?
Yeah, I mean, that's frame by frame animation, right? All hand drawn, pretty much.
No, it's actually not. It's actually not. So People Pleaser is very, very good at toon shading.
Oh, wow, tricked me.
You can go on her website, and the toon shading, making 2D look like 3D, is really part of her aesthetic. Maciej also, like, it looks 2D, but actually he models everything in 3D. We had a good chance to talk about his process, but like it's like detail. What I love about Maciej's work is just the eyes. The eyes on his characters are just to die for. They're not like traditional manga eyes. I'm getting super nerdy here. They've got like this slightly different quality to them. I can't quite describe it. The noses as well, they don't feel like like traditional Japanese manga noses. They're like really buttony and turned up.
Little triangles.
Little triangles, and he does these longer ones. They're more soulful, and the eyes are less sort of over exaggerated, like whoa, way up here. They're a bit more. It's the same recognizable style, but it's got this real. I love it. Can you tell?
It's all in the eyes. It's all in the eyes.
It's all in the eyes, right?
There's so many subtleties to good eyes, but I can relate to what you're saying. That's what.
Yeah, 100%. And Machado is like one of the most sought after concept designers. I mean, he did all the
Ghost in the Shell.
The Ghost in the Shell stuff, and this one here in particular, like everybody saw this, even if you hated the movie, and the movie kind of sucked, but like the design, the aesthetic, oh my god, so good, so good. And I feel like when Macheda's a drop, it's sort of lumped into this high art concept. What they're doing here is they're creating a journey, they're creating a timeline, and I think that ties in very neatly to what you're talking about, Bruno, with RMRK, is this idea of like over time these items become infinitely scalable in terms of their value, but also in terms of their utility. And that seems to me like a perfect opportunity to bring in Mark from MetaMundo. Mark, welcome to the show. MetaMundo. I'm going to bring it up now. Oh, that's the wrong bit of MetaMundo. This is what we want. MetaMundo, the 3D NFT marketplace for building the metaverse. I feel like you and Bruno from RMRK would get on so well. But why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your project and how it fits into the metaverse?
Yes, thank you for having me on the show. Bruno, I've heard many good things, actually. We do share a contact as well with Jack from Hypersphere.
Indeed.
Yeah. Very happy to be here. I'm Mark, a background actually in architecture and design. Been an entrepreneur now for 13 years. I've always been passionate about building tools, solutions, platforms to empower creators. I'd say a year ago now, I saw that the metaverse was appearing, and it was this huge immersive 3D web that we're moving towards, and it needs to be built, it needs to be designed, created. I had a look around, and the current NFT marketplaces, they're great for 2D. But then we realized there needs to be a dedicated NFT marketplace for 3D. And therefore, I founded, together with my co-founder, MetaMundo. We've developed our own smart contract to allow for multiple 3D files to be embedded within one NFT. And then that allows you to basically own a 3D file asset that can be used across multiple virtual environments. We've done our Meta Portal drop, which is basically a showcase of our technology. This is going to be a device for the metaverse that allows you to put this on your land or put this in your environment, and allow you to travel between many different virtual environments, games. From the get-go, we'll be supporting Decentraland, CryptoVoxel, Somnium Space, Spatial, and many more virtual environments.
Yeah, really interesting stuff. And I think it's the challenge that we have in front of us. We've got very many different philosophies of what a metaverse is. And ultimately, the thing that matters is we have our identity and we have our value. And those things, they travel with us. And the graphic element and all these other things need to figure out how to make that as seamless and as frictionless as possible. So it does feel like what we're creating at the moment is a band-aid for the much kind of more fluid and frictionless experience we're going to have, but we need to get through this phase in order to understand what that's going to be. And so when Bruno's talking about multi-resource NFTs, it feels like you guys are very much spiritually aligned in terms of giving people one item that can be many things depending on where you are. Is that probably a fair way to express it?
That's a fair way. There's two paths to, let's say, metaverse interoperability and 3D interoperability that we've noticed. Standardization, and most, let's say, Decentraland, Spatial, there seems to be a pattern of going down towards GLB, a GLTF file. Of course, JPEGs, they're interoperable already. right? But 3D files are just a whole different beast. Sandbox uses .vox, has its own requirements. CryptoVoxels uses VOX. Minecraft, Decentraland, all of these places, they all have different requirements, different engines, Unreal Engine 5, Unity. So standardization, we realized quite quickly that that's not going to be possible to get all of these guys to use exactly the same requirements. And we don't want that either, right? Because then 3D doesn't evolve. And it needs to evolve. And especially, for example, with the announcement of Unreal Engine 5. So the second solution to making an interoperable 3D file and NFT is providing the collector with a bundle. So what we've done is we're on the ERC 721 smart contract, but we actually have customizable metadata, which allows for multiple 3D files to be in one NFT, embedded within that one NFT, and then actually, these blockchain-powered virtual environments or games can actually call those decentralized files. That does require also converting those files, and having a background in architecture and design myself, we did, before we launched the project, we spoke with many 3D creators, and they're not so incentivized to go and create just for Decentraland or just for Sandbox. They just want to get their 3D software, Blender, 3ds Max, and they want to go and do the best 3D file they can as a piece of art. And that just wasn't possible. The barriers to getting that 3D art and making sure that it worked in these virtual environments the barriers are very high. So what we're saying to 3D creators is give us your best version of your file, this high polygon count, high fidelity, this future-proof file. And that will actually be the main NFT that you acquire, you collect. So that's like the future-proofed piece of art. And then we actually convert that original file and we create optimized child files, which are optimized for each virtual environment. And then you have that in one bundle. That's our approach to interoperability and kind of doing 3D NFTs.
So the interesting part of that is that you're letting the platform determine the file format. And Vector, you probably can speak to this better than I can, but like OBJ, right? OBJ is it's the one that works. It's Wavefront. If I'm looking for a 3D file that I can use across all different platforms, I go for the OBJ. I don't go for the other ones. What's your experience of all of this in terms of just working with 3D and generating 3D art that can be seen in its best possible format?
From my perspective, yeah, I mean, OBJ is obviously just works across every piece of different software, 3D wise. So, it's quite a low file size. So yeah, it easily works in things like Sandbox and Decentraland and I guess Spatial as well. But yeah, it's just all about polygon count, really, isn't it? That's the biggest limit we're all dealing with at the moment. Just GPUs and just having to keep things incredibly low fidelity. So, I guess as a longer term thing, like at what point can we start using higher definition models, and how is that? Because I've heard also
Nanite.
What?
Say it loud. It's Nanite. It's UE5, Nanite, and Lumen. We'll get so bored of talking about them, but seriously, Mark knows. He knows.
You love UE5. But at what point, will that actually be like possible browser-wise? Because isn't there something, apparently it's not far off. It's to do with like cloud rendering with different GPU.
We had Jules back on 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, we did. Yeah,
it's not that far away, actually. Funnily enough.
Yeah, and we could, and these bundles will handle high fidelity 3D files as well.
So what that's the concept that we have, that yes, you will get these high fidelity files. The OpenSea at the moment, for example, you can only mint a 200 megabyte file max. We're going up to 1 gigabyte. So we're taking the brakes off there. But you are right. The polygon count is that main constraint that we're working with, but also, for example, the plot sizes for Decentraland Sandbox. Decentraland plot size is 16 meters by 16 meters. Sandbox is 96 meters by 96 meters. So it's a very different kind of plot size. So these are in-house that we have our 3D modelers working towards, and we're working with the creators to optimize for these different land sizes as well as the polygon counts.
Wow. So as a creator, how easy is it for me to create an asset and then hand it to you? Is there like just a kind of guidelines and processing that I do at my side and hand it over, or do I hand over something quite easy and the processing happens with your platform? Is that the service?
Yeah, so this is our promise to the creator, that don't feel constrained by the requirements of each platform, or go do the best art that you can think of. You can hand that file over as an FBX or an OBJ, or you can just send it straight from whatever software you're using, the full bundle. And then we have our in-house 3D modelers. We have our own plugins as well that we're using to basically make sure these files work with each platform. And then we take the rest and we optimize it and convert those files.
Wow. Okay.
So I think the most exciting part of what MetaMundo is about is the community. It's going to be attracting creators to come and just create ad nauseam, just build stuff. Because I think my experience of Unreal Engine 5 is it's Megascan's library, the ability to just tap into this incredible network of very, very, very capable creators at a pretty low cost as well, to get really high grade assets that you can just remix and use however you want. And then those creators can then see, per usage, more and more value accrue to them as you use the game, or some people interact with it, all these kind of things. Like that for me is really exciting. So I'm curious to hear how you see that rolling out for you at MetaMundo, and where you're going to go with this in terms of bringing a creator community on board.
We do have we have a really nice backlog of 3D artists, let's say, that have applied to work and create with us. We are at the start taking a curated approach, because we do need to invest. From our side, we're also preparing this product and making sure the collectors get something that's quality for the metaverse. I mean, every stakeholder we've spoken to about the metaverse is that we need to create a quality space. It needs to be really engaging and sticky as a product. So we're looking now. When we launch, we'll be launching with around 5 really interesting creators, and we're going for a high quality level to start with. And over time, as we improve our technology, improve the processing, improve the pipeline, then we can actually start expanding, some of the creators that we work with. The one thing I would like to say, which I'm super excited about with Unreal Engine 5, of course, is we've been seeing, how series like The Mandalorian has started using Unreal Engine and taking these 3D assets as assets to be used as well as in film and TV series. And we're seeing now this merging of game and TV. And this is also something that we're looking at, that if you get these 3D NFTs, yes, you can use them in the metaverse, but we also want to be up at that level where it could also be used for media in the future.
Yeah, well, I can speak to that directly, because this is the key piece of our roadmap here that we experimented with earlier in the year using Unreal Engine to produce in. It's not straightforward. It's not. You realize just how early you are in this, and you talk about pipeline. Like, everything in Unreal Engine is very flexible and programmable. And I see everything that we do in the future being eminently programmable, to the point where I can map, for instance, this control panel and have a bunch of things happen. Like we just played around with some stuff. Like, we could press a button and a bunch of bananas would just spawn and then fall on my head in response to something that happened in chat. Like, all of that can be programmed into Unreal Engine, but like, this is pretty high level stuff, and it's not robust. That's the problem. Like, you know, your level of coding, everything else, it has to be on point. What's really cool though is that what you're talking about, the 3D assets, that bit of it, like using megascans and everything else, that bit is incredibly robust and really lightweight and really easy to use. It generates a ton of data on your hard drive, but if you can manage that bit specifically to a particular project, it's incredible. So I'm pretty optimistic about that bit. Some of the other stuff, like the Mandalorian level of production, is completely out of reach for everybody. That is impossible. But there are other pieces of this which kind of work. But we've invested in that, and I think we as the Defiant moving forward as a virtual production metaverse studio or metaverse broadcaster, what do you want to call it, we'll be at the forefront of this. So we're the ones that should be saying to creators, send your stuff to MetaMundo. They'll create the files that we need, and then we don't have to worry about doing that our end, and our studio can take an asset in the morning and, you know, stream with it in the afternoon. I want to get rid of all of this. Like the wonderful thing about this Unreal and virtual production environment is that it's very good for the environment. It actually makes production and shooting impossible worlds much cheaper, but also much better for just, you know, the carbon footprint of what you do as a production unit. Eminently more stomachable, I think is the right word. So you know what I mean? So yeah, so I see where you're coming from. From a practical point of view, like it sucks right now. It genuinely does, and someone has to kind of fail and fall on their face a lot, and I think that's going to be us. But that's fine. We'll do the hard yards, you know.
I think there's going to be a flippening from 2D live stream podcasts to fully 3D. Right? There's got it. We have to. We're waiting for that flippening.
But you know what? You know what the in between stage is. Let me call up, because this is what I was trying to do today. Because normally on these streams, I stream as something weird, generally. And I try and like use Deepface Live or some kind of like Vroid Studio. This is what I was going to use today. This is Anatta, and this is the Anatta collection. These are basically VTuber skins that you can take on and VTube with. And it's actually very, very straightforward. And I was trying to use it with VStudio, but it didn't want to play nice with my Elgato and my camera. And I left it obviously like 20 minutes before the stream. I'm like, oh, fuck, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And I was trying to get like the camera to read OBS and everything else. But these are NFTs that you can then VTube as, and there's a whole bunch of them. But you're absolutely right. But I do feel that this is the in-between stage. These are very, very nice assets in that manga style, and it works really well. Like it does. But like, yeah, we're not there yet. We're not there yet. That full 3D thing, yeah, we're not there yet.
For us, so we're focusing on scenes right now and objects. And yes, we're talking about these file types like GLTF, GLB, OBJ. Yes, that really works for a scene or an object in the metaverse or in a virtual environment. But then the real tricky one is avatars, right? Interoperable avatars. Yes. And Unreal and Unity, they're definitely not aligned with their avatar file types. VRM is kind of the metaverse file type, which is, you know, gaining some traction. And there's a guy called Jin who's doing great work there. But when
that's Jin, by the way, Jin's amazing. Like, you go and read his Twitter feed, and you're like, I have no idea what you're talking about. But then he shares some video, and like, okay, yeah, that's pretty amazing. Yeah,
he got me bits like running through all of these Zelda type landscapes, like Call of Duty landscapes, and he made it happen. And that's, if that can happen, you know, we know that Bored Apes are working on their 3D version, and obviously
100%. That's actually a good question, because the whole Bored Ape philosophy, well, or at least what we think was going to happen, because we should distance Bored Apes from Yuga. Yuga's philosophy is going to be a metaverse for everyone, and a story-driven metaverse for everyone, which is massively interoperable. But obviously, there's going to be a bunch of file types that don't work in that environment that will need to be translated in some way. That will mean an SDK, and that will mean, in some way, figuring out how to take just non-compatible assets and turn them into compatible ones. But you're absolutely right. Like, when they bought Lava Labs IP, Punks was the headline item, but I think Meebits was the one that they actually wanted.
Oh, for
And I
sure.
saw Gordon Gonner was talking about how he'd taken a week off, and the item that he was obsessed with was Meebits. And then you go and look at what Meebits gave you. It's this really clear set of file types. You can go and rig them yourself, and you can go and get them set up to do all kinds of things. But that was a year ago. They were like a year ahead of time, and now suddenly here we are in a place where you can actually do something with them. That's pretty interesting.
Yes, and there's definitely movements. Right now there's probably 3 collectives all trying to standardize avatars, and there's definitely some movement there. But yeah, unless Unreal and Unity kind of get together and speak to each other, I mean, that's probably never going to happen. So then that's where our solution could come in as well. Because then you get this one NFT, and we have this customizable metadata where you get these different file types for each engine and for each game. But yeah, it's that's in our roadmap. But first of all, we're going to do scenes.
Sounds complex. Bruno, you've been listening to all of this. How does this sound to you?
Well, this is the ideal case for multi-resource NFTs, and MetaMundo is on the right track there. With that, I wish they were using RMRK contracts. Maybe we can work something out. But this is the right approach. The wrong approach is, again, having a company or project that tries to standardize something. You know what happens when you try to standardize standards. You end up with another standard that somebody's going to try to standardize in another few years. But if you go, again, with the bottom-up approach, you end up with technology that actually supports this and that lets you diversify, because nobody is expecting those absolutely insufferably crappy avatars from Decentraland to be the standard forever. Like, you don't want to walk around a low poly forever. It's going to change. It's going to upgrade. It's going to be different. And you have to allow this to be different. And you also have to allow portability. With proper multi-resource NFTs, you can do different things. Like, I, for example, I'm a gamer. I love games. I will play whenever I can, but I don't think the next billion users are in 3D metaverses. For one, I don't think they're actually metaverses, and another thing is that I don't really expect a lot of casuals to sit down behind a computer and don a VR set, or even be able to move around with a mouse and keyboard and WASD movement. Even my generation of people still have problems with WASD or moving around in 3D environment. That is not the way to mass adoption, in my opinion. It's fun, it's great, I enjoy it. I have a presence in all of these metaverses and some land and everything, but I don't think that's the next avenue. So this is why we are focusing on hyper casual, and our Skybreach metaverse will be hyper casual, 2D, top down-ish, think Tibia, think Habbo hotel stuff. But again, how do you port an avatar into this that is 3D, or that is a Kanaria bird? Well, with multi-resource NFTs. You add a resource that is a pixelated version of this NFT into that NFT, and that NFT can load itself into such an environment. Later on, somebody builds a Minecraft on-chain, we can add a 3D version of that same avatar to that same NFT, load it into the Minecraft game. It just works. So this is why you need to have tech that supports these different standards, because they will never agree on one standard for avatars. Everybody wants to express their project in different ways, and you need to have a technology that allows you to have this freedom of expression.
Composability is going to be the name of the game. And it's such a profound idea, composability of identity. Like, who you are when you walk into a shop is the same as who you are when you get home. But like, that just isn't the case in the metaverse in so many different ways, but it could be. But it's also just, a bunch of other things, which just what you have, where you've been, your experience. Bruno, you were talking about how your wallet history could be a way of getting a loan. And I've always talked about this, like, your reputation matters in blockchain because it's all trackable. And I think people are underestimating the degree to which forensics will be able to go back in time and see who you were. And I've seen numerous instances of people who are kind of prominent people in the NFT space, but quite young, like 21, 22 years old. And people have gone back in their Twitter histories when they were like 12, 13 years old and seen they've said some things that they really shouldn't have said. And that's all on Twitter, but you can delete that. Like you can't delete anything on chain. So like who we are and what we do leaves an indelible footprint, and that matters. But it can also be this, great generator of trust in who you are and your reputation, all these kind of things, which might give people greater responsibility in curating their own life experience or at least the way they express themselves online. Which, I mean, there's so many things that I don't even know where this is going or what it's going to be. But what I do know is like, I don't know, just take a bit of care with this stuff. Take a little bit of care.
Yeah, but also it's different when, like with Twitter, you kind of always have a record of who you are, who you were. And I am so grateful that we didn't have Twitter when I was young.
What did you do, Bruno?
I would have been canceled many times over for sure. But also like with a proper on-chain reputational non-transferable NFT that properly, like right now, the way most reputations are built on chain is through airdrop spam, and you end up with a bunch of unrelated NFTs scattered across your address that really don't share a context. But if you have one avatar that can really grow with this, you have basically one pass that you use that evolves with you. And I think that's really cool. That's a really powerful concept, especially because no part of you has to be doxxed for this to work. And if you mess it up, if your reputation does something really wrong, you can just discard it and start over. And getting a second chance is like a really valuable thing in life. So just, learning a lesson by having to discard that reputation and start over is better than just being evicted from any ecosystem that you're part of wholesale. So I think there's a lot of potential here in just these wonderful experiments that we're seeing. There are 4 in production now on our system that are using customizable avatars with non-transferable sub-NFTs to indicate reputation and performance. There's even a prediction market chain that is using these avatars to give every chain user such an account and upgrade them with rewards so they can pimp themselves out with some transferable gear, but also get non-transferable achievements based on their predictions in the prediction market. And I think that's super powerful.
That is super powerful. Mark, looking ahead, what is the kind of the 2-3 years down the line future look like for MetaMundo?
I like to, I kind of as an entrepreneur, I think it's always quite good to see what the kids are doing, right? So I always check up on my nephew, who's 10 years old. He's got, at the moment, he's full on Roblox, full on Fortnite. I asked him how many wearables and skins have you got for Fortnite now? I think he's in 100 plus. And that's a lot of money. And he, if Fortnite stops working, then it's all gone. So the vision that I would love, is for my nephew to have those skins that are interoperable, that they work across multiple games, that actually, we have ways of traveling between all of these different environments. I think if we actually, and I look at the time he spends online and using media, and it is 90% 3D, right? So, and I saw some research that, and I think it's from Gartner, that 25% of us will be spending 1 hour a day in the metaverse in 2 years' time. I think NVIDIA has predicted that we've got right now 5% of the web is 3D, and that's going to go to 50% in faster than we know it. How are we going to be interacting with that? It's super difficult to say, because it's going to be a game changer if Apple does bring out this VR AR device next year. We've seen it, the iWatch, the iPad, they really changed industries. And obviously that's going to be a big competitor to Oculus, and it would most likely be portable. How that's going to work and how that's going to change, that's going to be a real industry changer, in my opinion. So I'm looking forward to that coming out, and that could flip everything that I forecast right now on its head.
That's so interesting to hear, because I do the same thing. I have kids of my own. One's 8, one's 10, Roblox. They were in Minecraft and they love Minecraft, but Roblox has really grabbed them. It's also completely destroyed the battery life on my phone. Like the first thing I do in the morning is I set the battery to low power mode, because I know even though I have a max, like my son, like you could literally you could warm the house up with how much heat's generated from how much he uses my phone. But like what I was so interested in, I never sat down and worked through these games with them. They figured out the economy in an hour. And they went, okay, now I'm buying this, and they cannot wait when I get home to tell me, Daddy, I did this, and I'm going to fly my ship from here, and it cost $175,000. I'm like, no, it didn't. It's not $175,000. It is to him, and he runs around and he picks up the thing, but like, it's exactly that. Like you have to keep your eye on the 10-year-olds who are going to be teenagers in a few years, and they're the ones that are going to build the next great protocol, the next great metaverse. Because if you don't look at how they're doing things, all you're going to do is look through these rosy tinted glasses. Like in the 80s we did this, or in the 90s we did this, and like wasn't MTV great? And like, yeah, throw all that in the bin and pretend you're a 5-year-old. What does the world look like? And then go. And like for a 5-year-old, getting one of these is the greatest status symbol you could ever have, even if it can't make phone calls. It's a fucking phone and it can't make phone calls. You don't care. You just like it because it can play games and connect to your mates. And that's it. It's eminently social, and it's eminently about sharing something with people in real time. So my son sits in his room, my daughter sits downstairs, but they play in the same Roblox universe. I'm like, guys, go outside and kick football around. No, Daddy. We got 10 minutes of Roblox. I'm like, okay, fine. And then I go on YouTube and talk about it.
Yeah, the irony. I mean, the glass generation, right? They are the glass generation, and I'm optimistic that these ways of spending time are more stimulating, productive, proactive than our generation, which was scrolling through a feed.
I'm a lot older than you think. You know that, right?
Okay.
You know Bruno's like 150 years old. He's like a mythical creature from Game of Thrones. He doesn't belong in the same universes. We've just borrowed him for this episode. He has to go back to Morkverse, wherever he's from. But you also know that like there's an extra bone growing on the back of people's heads because they do this. So in order to support your head looking down, an extra bone is growing, and also the shape of people's corneas is changing in response to screens. That's evolution, folks, and it's happening real fast. It's happening real fast. I do think, with my futurist hat on, I think that this is an eminently inefficient model of doing things, and it will die. Like a screen that requires batteries and all that. People in 20 years will look at this and go, "What were you thinking, idiots?" Most likely it'll be some kind of battery source that is powered by you, like a Rolex, but like for your entire thing. That's probably what's going to happen. But
I like the idea of contact lenses, for this AR, VR, you could switch it on and off. But the idea of putting contact lenses in my eyes is it just wouldn't work. But
I just want a spike in the back of my head. Well, I mean, that for me, that's medieval enough for me to feel like, you know what, this is Neil Stephenson for real.
You guys are stuck in the old ways of thinking about sci-fi. And now I feel young.
Preach.
What's going to happen is when we are all embedded with Neuralink, you will, first of all, wipe every single billboard ad from view, and it'll just be blank space everywhere you go. And then you're going to harbinger tax that. And
Nice.
Then people are going to buy those NFTs, harb tax the shit out of your field of view, and see only the stuff that you're interested in and get paid for it.
Okay,
And
Bruno, rewind. Give the people at home the harbinger tax definition, because they're probably like, oh, what?
Oh yeah, okay. So I've been doing this harbinger stuff thing so long for our metaverse that I forget that it's not that popular. The idea is that there's something that is always for sale, and if you buy it, anybody else can buy it from you at a price higher than what you paid for it. But for as long as you are the owner, you pay a tax that is a part of the price that you paid for it. So in effect, the more you pay for it, the more a tax you will have to pay, but the less likely it is that somebody else is going to yoink it from you. And so it encourages fair price discovery and discourages camping of, virtual real estate or art or whatever else.
It's also known as the hot potato tax.
Okay, I don't know about that, but but yeah, that's the concept. Basically, you have something that other people want, but you don't necessarily want to allow somebody to just buy it and then own it forever and not give it utility.
Yeah, it's game theoretics. It's basically saying what is the price of having a desirable asset over the cost of owning it. So you do the maths over a 10-year period and say, well, actually, this doesn't add up. And then you have to work really hard to make it valuable enough for someone else to want to buy it off you. And therefore, you create economic value in a system. So the idea of squatting on assets, that is so endemic to NFTs right now. Whales will buy up the rarest kind of top 20 assets and then squat on them and do absolutely nothing for an ecosystem and wait for the value to rise up, and they'll do it again and again and again and again and again, simply because they can, and then flip. And then
I think that's going to be a huge problem with the current metaverse ecosystem, where you don't have this mechanic in play. There's nothing to take that land away from the campers, and a lot of it's going to be just abandoned land. Whereas for metaverses, this actually makes the most sense. If you put harbinger taxed land into hubs around spawn portals and so on, then you can encourage actual construction there. It's appealing. It has a lot of foot traffic, but also if you implement some interesting mechanics, like maybe you have raw resources in your game, wood, stone, whatever. Maybe you have avatars that are compatible with the game, that are financially accessible to most people. You can have, on a harbinger taxed piece of land, somebody can deploy a resource DEX that will only let you trade resources if you have an avatar. So it's whitelisted to avatars. And so then you have like a fee collection mechanism in that resource DEX on that spot to recoup that tax that you're paying on the land. And so it gives economic value to the land, like for as long as you can come up with creative uses for it.
Could you see a harbinger tax system in MetaMundo assets, Mark?
So we're actually working with a Metaverse game, and the concept of build to earn is definitely really interesting as a concept, which I think is similar. And yeah, we're seeing all of the Metaverse is becoming skeuomorphic. It's a replica of the real world in many ways. Also the economics, right? So we are seeing people want to rent out their land, license it. But here's a fact: 40 to 50 wallets are dominating 50% of the land sales on Decentraland, right? So that's it. It shouldn't be Decentraland anymore. It should just be called Centraland, I think, right? So that's something that needs to be fixed. I like the idea of build to earn and some way to remove those barriers to land, and obviously the hoddling and the whales taking up everything at the start.
Yeah, hoddling is like, it's this beautiful meme, and it really is the core of Bitcoin ownership and the resilience in the face of unspeakable kind of scrutiny over what Bitcoin is and everything else. But hodl is actually, it's horrible for economics. Like, you want people to spend, and you want to inject capital into a system to create economic growth and to move value around. So hodl is actually it's incredibly unhelpful, in fact, for economic systems. So figuring that bit out and having a very kind of volatile, fungible, or at least a token that wants to change hands a lot is a key piece of this. And I keep coming back to this, but like this weekend, the supposed smartest minds and the most well-capitalized minds in the space will unleash the first phase of the other side. This is the Bored Ape metaverse concept that is designed to be democratic and allow other projects to come into it. So many of the things that we've covered in this episode are supposedly what they will attempt to address with this ecosystem, and I'm really curious to see whether they're going to make it work, because what it looks like is Facebook 2.0, just the metaverse version of it, powered by Bored Apes and some cute storytelling and graphics and everything else. But what it might be is it might be the catalyst for a bunch of other really dynamic and interesting, innovative projects to take that ball and run with it, knowing full well that whatever risks they take, they're backstopped by an open metaverse that has the power of the Bored Apes behind it. And that really is where an open metaverse makes sense for me, empowering innovation elsewhere that still has a value chain that it can plug back into if things go really, really badly wrong. And that's my optimistic view on all of this, that like if Bored Apes win, we all win, which is not the popular view, I don't think.
Yeah, is ApeCoin fully decentralized? That's the question, right? You need an ApeCoin to buy the land.
It doesn't need to be. It doesn't need to be, because what you want is a leader and then a challenger brand, or maybe one or two or three or four challenger brands, but you can't have those challenger brands without the leader. So someone has to be the leader, and then you get the challenger brands, and then you get the innovation. So for me, it's a massive positive, all of this. Like they take the steps that we need to take. And also don't forget, like Bitcoin was born out of the need to challenge centralized institutions, and it took on that challenge. And the underdog story is always the greatest story. Where Bored Apes sit right now is they are directly in opposition to Mark Zuckerberg and Meta. They can do that bit and fight that fight and fight the SEC and all the legal ramifications of everything they're trying to build, when more agile teams can be more innovative, knowing full well that there's a decentralized narrative that's being pushed forward and being regulated, or at least championed and advocated for in a public forum by a very, very well capitalized organization with massive VC backing, and that can just get taken care of and just go do some stuff. That for me is where this arena is really interesting, that it just moves so fast that regulators cannot keep up, and we'll see some really cool stuff happen.
That is, I agree with the Bored Ape winning, everybody wins, but I am a little worried about the fact that you need to be KYC to buy land. Like, what's up with that?
I think that is probably to do with down the line. If they hadn't done it, it could bite them in the ass. I think it's preventative rather than.
But does it mean that land won't be tradable on the secondary market without KYC? And does it mean you'll have to have some sort of DID attached to your account in order to actually buy on the secondary market? Does it mean that they plan to make the land into a security that will generate yield in the form of resources or whatnot, and that this will be considered a security?
Well, there's an easy answer to that, which is that whatever the NFT that's being airdropped to Bored Apes owners and mutant owners is, they didn't need KYC, which
right.
It doesn't mean they don't need to trade, but like if they wanted to trade on the marketplace that we know is going to exist, and they couldn't do that without KYC, that would be a problem. The only place I see friction here is off ramping. So if Bored Apes want to create an off ramp for Ape to Fiat, then you'll need KYC for sure. There's no way that they can do that without that. But they are part of. Well, they're not part of, but like, the MEW from FTX is part of the governance committee of ApeCoin. I mean, FTX obviously has credentials in this. So whatever that is, like, we can't get around it. But the activity in the ecosystem itself at the moment, I don't see why it would need KYC. I don't know anything about it. I'm speculating. Is the plain and simple truth of it. But I love what I'm seeing. I love the ambition, and I love the doors it's breaking down, and I also love the complete recontextualization of the narrative around NFTs, which is they are not siloed communities. They are a complete material of a cohesive whole, a soap opera, if you like, and we can all play a part in it somewhere and be in it. That's cool. I like that. And it's a chain agnostic thing. So yeah. I
like the soap opera analogy. Yeah, that's a good one.
Well, yeah, that's like, you know, like Bruno can be a pantomime villain in this soap opera, and you know, Vector can be the superhero, the man without a cape. He can save us all. I don't know. Listen, we were supposed to have People Pleaser on this stream, Have you seen her anywhere?
No.
She's a no-show. The first we've ever had on this show, People Pleaser didn't turn up. So we've been trying to get People Pleaser for like 3 weeks now, and this doesn't happen. Doesn't happen. And like, you know what? It's fine because Bruno and Mark, you were fantastic guests. Vector, as always, you spoke way too much. So next time, just shut up. You know. But as we crest 5 minutes and 40 here in the Netherlands, I think it's definitely time to stop. But thank you so much, guys. This is really insightful and interesting, and I hope everyone at home or wherever you are listening to this got a good deal of information out of it. This really is the bleeding edge of everything to do with NFT and open metaverse tech, and it was an absolute privilege. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Did you just say fuck you, Vector Meldrew?
Yeah, sorry.
You did, didn't you?
I said thank you.
You beauty.
No,
I'm going to
thank
play
you
one
very
last sponsor message because I completely forgot to play it, and then we'll be out. Thank you, guys. Cheers.
Thank
See you
you.
next time. Don't forget to subscribe. Like, you know what to do.
NFTgo.io is an all-in-one NFT platform to help you find everything you need to know about the marketplace. Hungry for data? Get informed on market sentiments, upcoming collections, data of top collections, and even the behaviors of the biggest whales around. There's always something more you can learn about any specific collection, like the price trend of that collection you have, who co-owns the project with you, and their trading habits. It's all right there. And it even helps you find the lowest price on the market for you to make an informed decision, which, let's face it, is a big helping hand. Check out nftgo.io today.